or Rethink the Dollar, or aka Dump the Dollar. President Erdogan in Turkey tells his citizens in order to help the country out, it'd be in your best interest to go under your pillow, grab the dollars, the euros, and gold. And as you tell them today's title, how the baby boomers will lose their retirement nest egg, I want to share with you a couple thoughts as well as some articles on how the next market correction will be catastrophic for a lot of people.
Always cash crisis. Working about Venezuela once again.
Systemic important banks. They removed the 1,000 thing on there called monetary awareness. All right, we're live. Midday news update. Excited to touch on a couple interesting articles, and one that most recently caught my attention that I definitely had to lead off with because it plays into a possible trigger into what could be coming to the U.S. and it has to do with social unrest and how I'm not quite sure the thought process behind it, but we're going to touch on the article and find out exactly what it's talking about. But when I saw the subject matter of 700,000 people being cut off of their lifeline, of their economic lifeline, in a sense, as to what the whole social program with food stamps has become for a lot of people, it will definitely spell trouble. And my question would be, why would you do it if that is the case? And then we're going to talk about it a little bit more. But anyway, welcome to the Midday News Update. My name is Mike. Looking forward to connecting with you guys. And as always, before I dive into it, the point is to lay out about 6 or 7 articles, get your thoughts on it. And then if there's anything out there that you guys are aware of, this newsworthy, let me know in the chat and I'll definitely touch on it. There'll be no phone lines because I want to actually keep this thing flowing. And so we're going to go from there. But let me check in with the chat and acknowledge a couple of people's presence. We got low blood pressure. Excalibur. He'll watch this Silver Slam. Excalibur says, I saw that Trump was cutting the food stamps this morning in the Wall Street Journal. I thought about you, Mike, because you mentioned the food supply being attacked. Couldn't be more timely. We got low blood. We got Nicholas. We got, what else? We got Loki. It says, not you subsidize. So we got, you get more of what you subsidize. No more free rides for losers. Unfortunate. What else we got? Who Me? We got Kevin. We got Tony Blaylock. How's everybody doing this afternoon or early morning or late evening, depending on where you're watching from. So with that being the case, I want to dive right into the article. And as I mentioned, if you have any thoughts or comments, highlight at Rethinking the Dollar so it'll stand out right here in the chat. And I'll definitely get back to it. But if I don't get into these articles, I'm going to start ranting. So let me do that. Let me pull up the very first one here, which happens to be the leading subject matter for today. So once again, when I saw this, I'm thinking like, wow, this cannot be something that is a good idea. It's definitely not a good idea at this current moment, given the fact that President Trump is talking about, sanctioning or not sanctioning, but passing tariffs on all types of countries. Then he's going to cut off people's lifeline as far as their economic feeder source. So let's dive in this. But this is as of today. Came out yesterday, updated today, and it showed here on Bloomberg, and so I just came across it. And I'll actually give you an idea what's going on here for those that may not be too in tune with it. And I'll share it in the chat as well. It says the Trump administration announced a plan Wednesday to end food stamp benefits for about 700,000 Americans. So as of today, President Trump's administration announced plans to end 700,000 Americans, issuing a new regulation that makes it harder for states to gain waivers from a requirement that beneficiaries work or participate in a vocational training program. So one of the things where if you don't eat, you don't work, you don't eat type of motto here. And so we'll see how that plays out. Agriculture Secretary said the new rule would move more food stamp recipients, quote, towards self-sufficiency in and into employment. So think about this. If you have been an individual that have spent a good portion of your life or a long period of time in your life, depending upon the government, without having to meet these new criteria, new regulations, how do you think that's going to fly? And the first thing that comes to mind is that there will be some type of movement, grassroots movement that will be started by some propaganda institution that will fund people to take to the streets, will bust people into certain areas or possibly Washington, D.C. or whatever to protest any type of additional burden passed on to the people in the form of go out and get a job type of thing. So, yeah, once again, this is a prime example of how things start that's naturally meant to be beneficial for the recipients. Like, what's wrong with going out and being self-sufficient and looking for a work if you're unemployed, but yet the fact you're threatening to cut their government check, I can see people hitting the streets. It says conservatives have long sought cuts in the federal food stamps program for the poor. House Republicans tried to impose similar restrictions last year when Congress renewed the program, but were rebuffed in the Senate. It says the work requirement covers able-bodied recipients. So if you're able to get up in the morning and go somewhere and stand on your feet or sit down at a desk, you're capable of working. That's basically what they're saying. And it says U.S. Department of Agriculture spokesman said it doesn't apply to recipients who are over 50, disabled, pregnant, or anyone with a child under 18. So it's that 18 to 45 time frame that people will be expected to provide for themselves. So in theory, it sounds like it's something that should have been done a long time ago. But the fact you're doing it now, starting off with 700,000, and might just roll it out to where somebody's card is cut short the next month. January could be very interesting if this plays out the way that it's rolled out here. And then I'll move on in a second. It says the Urban Institute estimated an analysis that last month that measurement together would cut 3.7 million beneficiaries from the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, or SNAP, often known by its previous name, food stamps. The measure would be first of 3 Trump administration initiatives. So this is the very first one. So not only are people being laid off, skilled workers are being laid off, but yet you have the administration looking to cut 3 rounds of cuts to the SNAP program, which would put about 3.7 million people without benefits or a minimum benefits. So those are definitely grounds for protest. So I'm gonna move on, and I'll share this with you guys in the chat for those that are interested. But I'm curious, how do you think this is going to play out? What are your thoughts? Give me some ideas out there via chat. Let me know, because it's one of the things where it has to be done better than this. You can't just roll out, you're going to cut at a time that you're sanctioning the world and people are dumping treasuries and the banking system is melting down. So this looks like a deliberate setup for an interesting January. What would you guys say about that? Let me see what's going on in the chat. So Lobro says, Mike, when are the banks going to stop getting food stamps repo? Low blood pressure. I know you know the answer to that. That's not happening, because all this stuff has been designed to make sure that the banks always win at all costs. Therefore, I'm not anticipating nothing significant to come from that right there. It says everyone should be growing a survival garden, yes, even in an apartment. Loki, give us some knowledge. Send us a link on how to get started with that. A lot of people have no clue how to do that. So a lot of it is just a lack of knowledge in that particular area. So feel free to let us know. It says we got Crypto Poppy TV in the building. Our Professor Curtis. It says Trump is a spawn of Satan himself. 10 pounds sterling. Interesting perspective. Independence cards. Government needs the poor. Yeah, the government needs the poor, because that's always their primary driver to the need for bigger and better legislation. We need to help the poor, feed the poor. Yeah, but everything they end up passing or bringing into law is at the expense of the people who actually contribute and work hard. People who actually do what they're supposed to do as far as providing for themselves and all that good responsible stuff. So it's basically saying if you're going to be responsible, you're going to be penalized. Robert says social unrest is coming anyhow. Cutting food stamps will just be the fuel on the fire. Yeah, I do agree. So on top of that, let's move on to the very next subject. I think you guys, it says, Ephraim says, White says, do we live by faith or reality? We're going to find out pretty soon. And so once again, like, depending on how you take these stories, there's 2 perspectives. There's the optimistic approach, there's the pessimistic approach, and there's the opportunity, and then there's the problem model. So depending on which frame of point of reference you take will determine your outcome. So I personally realize it's just the unfolding of what needs to occur. So I'm not surprised and taking it as it comes. So here's something else that is not very interesting as a whole. This has to do with the car apocalypse. So I love how people are adding, calypse to everything at the end. So we got Armageddon. We got what is it? It's either Apocalypse or Armageddon. We got I don't know. I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, to get the point of it. So here's an article here. It came out, looks like, on Market Insider today. And when I saw car apocalypse, I'm thinking like, that's not a real word, is it? But I guess anything at this point goes. So as the apocalypse is here, automakers are set to cull 800,000 jobs in the next few years. And when I saw that, the first thing that came to mind is, oh, that's not true. 80,000 jobs by next year in a worst case scenario. And so I'm thinking like 80,000 jobs next few years. That's been very nice. Like to say a few years, that's been very nice. And so of course they me personally, I can read into that. I wouldn't say a few years. I would say in the next few months. And just a worst case scenario. And if it doesn't happen, no harm, no foul. But to tell people a few years gives them a sense of false hope. So if I was directly in the auto manufacturing sector, to see this, I would be concerned. But if I saw the alternative side saying a few months, I would be really rethinking a lot of things. So give an idea what's going on here, then I'll share it in the chat. Here's some of the highlights here. It says auto workers have been hit hard in 2019. Oh, really? Around the world, roughly 80,000 are set to be lost over the next few months. Nearly 20,000 jobs were shed. Nearly 20,000 jobs were shed. Look at that. Were shed from German auto titans Daimler and Audi due to falling sales and the increasing cost of electric car production. So 20,000 jobs were announced just within the last couple of weeks. And so that's only 60,000 away from their projected figure. So that lets me know that the next 60,000 could easily be made up by, unfortunately, the big three here in Detroit. So that number is quite small in comparison to what I believe will end up being the end result. But give you an idea what's going on here, go down to the bottom a little bit. It says, Bloomberg, citing research from ISH Market, said that the car and light truck production slipped 6% compared to last year. So 6%, I'm not sure if I would use the word slipped. I would say it took a nosedive, because 6% is just the beginning, once again. Because think about this, at the end of the day, unless there's some type of economic growth and your average person feels comfortable and confident in the economy, they're not going to be willing to spend in the way that they have prior to. And as we get into this new decade, a lot of people will begin questioning and rethinking a lot of things in regards to the way things were done of old, whether it be saving, spending, how they work, how they live. And so all that is in the process of being changed right now. And so we're starting to see the ripple effects of people just deciding not to, or shifting from a consumption-based model to like, hey, let me save a little bit now. At the same time, in an environment where you're saving, you're still losing. So interesting. So here's more information here. If you guys are interested, I'll leave in the chat for yourself. You can feel free to dive in further if you like. What do you guys think about this? What are some thoughts? Are we near the beginning, or are we heading towards the end of this carpocalypse, as they said? And what exactly does that mean? It is better to live by knowledge rather than faith. Tony Blaylock. That is an interesting statement. And so once again, just to throw a little curveball about that one, knowledge. The question is, when it comes to knowledge, the only way we can truly gauge the information that we're operating on, our own current paradigm, is based upon our own experiences directly, which is a good teacher, but then also the information we gather from others. That's pretty much it. So we learn by trial and error typically. And so think about the repetitive cycle that this system continues to throw at us. Debt, crash, credit, expansion, the whole business cycle. Then you got just all the other things that we've been a part of. the problem, I think a big problem with what's going on now, it's the same people operating from the same level of knowledge, giving us the same type of solutions that they gave, what they would give us at any given time or place. We're basically, what I'm saying is we're recycling the same information over and over again, and none of it's working. And so at some point we're going to need something a little bit beyond ourselves, which far exceeds mankind's ability to begin to think or solve. And so I believe personally that comes through faith in something greater than yourself. Because if we are the greatest measurement of perfection, we're in big trouble. We're in big trouble. But that's just my 2 cents. Low-key says, cars and RVs doing poorly. Very true. Carmageddon. It says, hi, Mike. I came over to Silver Doctors. Thanks for the reporting. Yes, sir. Appreciate you, Glenn, for tuning in to this one as well. Getting double for your trouble. Get your medals. Doomsday is coming. Doomsday. I don't like the words doomsday. That's like saying it's coming to an end. I don't think it's coming to an end. It also depends on what you believe. You know what I'm saying? If you think this is going to be the end, then you are probably in trouble. But if this is going to be a great opportunity to take ownership in yourself and improve yourself and those around you, this could be a great thing that will do you good. I believe it's going to do a lot of people good. It's going to clean out a lot of riffraff and allow people to get back to the core essence of everything, which happens to be the core of the human nature. It's about being a blessing to other people, loving other people, not necessarily thinking about competition. We're always competing to go nowhere. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents. But once again, I'm rambling, so forgive me. Next article. Here's something that's interesting. It says Lebanon central bank to reduce interest rates to ease crisis. And so this isn't the only bank out here that's looking to ease their crisis. And so the central bank, we got next week, I think the 11th, there's a meeting for the federal funds for the Federal Reserve. And once again, Jerome Powell last month mentioned that everything looks good. We're going to keep it stable. We're going to be data dependent and yada, yada, yada. But whatever. The information that's coming out now isn't really helping his cause. So I would anticipate a possible pause if they want to keep the markets calm, or if they pause, the markets will respond negatively. If they decrease the Fed funds rates a quarter point, then the markets will increase favorably. So it's more so, what do you think the powers that be actually want to do? Do they want to start off 2020 with a panic, or do they want to start off 2020 with some euphoria of like, man, 2020 is going to be great. Look at your portfolios, it's going up. The stocks is great. And then President Trump a tweet, economy doing great. I'll show you this one. Listen, this is completely separate. But here, this was as of Monday. We got President Trump saying the Fed should lower rates. There's almost no inflation. So it looks like, depending on however you measure inflation, there's none. You let me know. And loosen, making us competitive with other nations. So once again, we got Lebanon about to cut rates. I got another central bank about to cut rates. Australia about to cut rates. U.S. about to cut rates. Everybody's cutting rates, which only makes you and us, the individual, the person who utilized the currencies that that rates reflect in a sense, worse off. And it says making us more competitive. Once again, I thought about what was about making America great again. So that means you have to lower rates, debase the currency to make us great again, assuming. And it says, and manufacturing will soar. Once again, if manufacturing soar, who's consuming? The average person isn't really spending that way anymore. And so it says the dollar is very strong relative to others. It's going to remain strong because everything else we measure it against is very weak. So I thought I would share that. But back to this article. And for those that may be interested in that, I'll share that in a tweet. I'll share that tweet with you guys in the live stream. And I want to acknowledge that super chat from Justin March. I appreciate the love offering to the channel, my friend. Thank you very much. So it looks like I can't send this tweet because it's too big. So forgive me. All righty. So next one. So according to this current moment, S&P is up, Dow is up, NASDAQ's up, Russell 2000 is up, crude oil is up, gold is up, or gold is down. So all the paper and digital stuff is doing well, but yet the tangible, hard assets is doing bad. So gold and silver are both doing a little bit of a downward spiral, which is a great opportunity. Anyway, so it says decision made buy much needed time for Lebanon, which is reeling under the worst financial crisis in decades, while authorities struggle to form a government after the resignation of Prime Minister following weeks of mass protests against corruption and deteriorating living standards. So Lebanon's dealing with corruption and deteriorating living standards. Now, I don't know exactly what that looks like there, but I know what they're doing. They're burning, they're looting, they're rioting. I would probably say the U.S., when it comes to corruption and deteriorating living standards overall, is not really all that great either. Like the land of the living, the land of the free, and home of the brave, and all that stuff we were pushed to be, that exceptional mind frame that we've been given. It's better than the rest, but yet, once again, it's not what it used to be here. So, once again, how much longer can corruption and deteriorating living standards keep Americans out of the streets? We're going to find out. And so, for those that are interested, I'll share this with you guys in the live stream. And so, as always, after every article, I want to kind of check into the chat to see if I missed anything, any thoughts. Says, pay me money bags. Says, do you believe in God? And if so, this all won't end well. I never hear people resort to God. Your thoughts. Pay me money bags. Great question there. So, yes, assuming you might be new to the channel, but yet the whole concept moving forward especially will be geared towards the only solution I believe we have as a human species is to get connected back with our Creator. And of course, everyone here can admit that what we see with our eyes had to originate somewhere, and it didn't come from a bang. And if it did come from a bang, who created the bang? So that's the thing. It's always going to leave a loophole of never being able to answer the question of how did we arrive here? So why not give somebody the credit? Like, why? What does it hurt? What does it hurt you to give something or some entity the credit for everything you currently have and everything that's around us? And so I personally don't mind even drilling it down even further to being very precise. And if I'm wrong, I can live with that. And if I'm right, I'm going to live with that too. So I personally have no problem. I don't see color. I don't see the things that most people see, thank God. And so I more so focus on the spiritual elements of things, knowing that there's a natural and there's a spiritual to everything. And the spiritual, when it comes to me, is very simply, I find more comfort and have been rewarded and blessed more through the biblical model of things, referring to the a single entity that is sovereign and deserves my personal allegiance. That's just me. So I'm gonna leave it at that. But we can have a religious section. I don't even like religion. Religion's bad. Anyway, so forgive me. Says, what happened in 2012? Question mark. Not sure what that means. Mike, if you want to reap, you must sow in Trump stamps. Low blood pressure. Reap, sow, yes, but yet it's just the timing of it. It'd have been different if you'd have came out with phase 1 of 3, which was to cut 3.7 million, I think it said. So to go back to that, for those that are just tuning in, this whole idea of President Trump looking to implement phase 1 of cutting food stamps, at the same time, he's not able to actually get phase 1 of the trade deal because he's passing tariffs on the very same people we're supposed to be negotiating with. So how do you punish the people you're negotiating with and expecting a great deal? I don't know, but we're going to find out. But the people who have been dependent upon a system, they're going to be punished. And it's just the timing of it. So I believe there should have been a cut. Problem is, the Great Society done by Lyndon B. Johnson in 1965, when that whole SNAP program came into existence, was designed to get us to this point of the people being dependent upon the government. Because whoever supplies your bread ultimately has a say-so in what you do or don't do. And that plays into the video I did yesterday. And I got an article on that as well about the homelessness situation because it's about to get worse. Watch this. So let me get to the next article. And so once again, forgive me for ranting, but if you guys don't give me a direct question for me to respond to, I tend to get carried away, so forgive me. Next article here. India's central bank expected to cut rates, but that may not be enough to spur growth. And so I think that's very interesting, this title, because to me, monetary common sense or monetary sense, I like that word. Monetary sense tells me that you can't cut you can't cut enough to spur growth because growth ultimately comes from savings. And at this current moment, there is no true capital laying around that can be utilized to create genuine growth. So it has to be artificially induced through the monetization of every single thing you can find. So cutting rates will make debt cheaper, but will only draw them into a bigger hole. So I just mentioned about Lebanon needing to cut rates because of a crisis. India is also in a crisis. And they have 1 point something billion people, of which 75% or so, give or take, are already living well below the global poverty standard. And so once again, you imagine if they're talking about 3 point something million Americans being cut off of food substance. Imagine half a billion people all of a sudden getting pissed and deciding to take to the streets in India. That's going to be unbelievable. But I'll give you an idea what's going on here. This is as of today from CNBC. It says the Reserve Bank of India is expected to further, it means they've already been cutting rates, further slash rates tomorrow after recent data reveal economic growth slowed to a 6-year low in September. The central bank has cut rates by 135 basis points since January, so 1.35% has been cut, but those moves have not transmitted to the broader economy as many leaders remain hesitant to lend. Lending is a problem. Yeah. Increasing experts say the RBI may have a policy dilemma in its hands. On one hand, it needs to accommodate monetary policy to help spur economic growth. On the other hand, it needs to address a rebound in inflation due to rising food prices. So they got a double whammy. In the streets, the people are feeling the pain because it's becoming more expensive to live. At the same time, the banking sector isn't lending, so they're needing to drop rates, which will only spur on more debt, which will not make it to the mainstream economy. So India is in a world of mess. So any minute now, there can be some type of event in India. So the current repo rate is 5.15. So it's 5.15 doesn't say a lot to a currency that's not really needed for much. So if they cut, when they cut, it's going to be a problem. So here's a little India growth chart. So for the last, as they say, 6 years, there hasn't been much growth overall. So when 2020 starts, you shouldn't expect any more growth either. So I'm assuming they have to know that, but I'm not going to assume that they will. Let me get here. So we got checking with the chat real quick. Says, first off, he has no business trying to kill a bill that was instituted specifically for poor Americans trying to feed their children, add a lot of working American families. So we got Watch Woman. I like where that's going. Let me check in with that real quick. And so it says, first off, all he has no business trying to kill a bill that was instituted especially for poor families trying to feed their children. There are a lot of working poor American families. Watch Woman, very true. So here's the thing. Whether he cuts it or whether he keeps it, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I don't think it really will matter because even the checks or the deposits they're getting on those cards, if inflation picks up, won't really purchase much. So I think it'll be better, ultimately, depending on how you look at it. And of course, every situation is different, but I think it will be better for the long run. For a lot of people who have to become dependent upon assistance from the government to wean themselves off deliberately. Like, I think if you want to be able to own and to thrive in this new economy that's coming, we have to do things differently than before, which means learning to find ways to innovate yourself. And the biggest thing is we've been conditioned to look outside for help rather than looking inside to what we already possess. And everybody has something to offer that is of value to this world. Now it's a matter of, are you aware of that? Because if you're aware of it, you can make more money on yourself than you could getting from a handout. I'm gonna leave it at that. But I kind of get the tone from your tone there. I see where you want to take that, and I think once again to each his own. But ultimately, at the end of the day, whether you get assistance or not, at the end of the day, it was not going to benefit you at all. Let's go. Okay, let's keep it moving. So I'm getting behind, man. So I'm ranting too much. I apologize. Here's some other news that's not necessarily great. Private payrolls growth tumbles in November as job market is losing its shine. So these happen to be all CNBC because I think they're deliberately, the CNBC, which is a primary mainstream source, they're placating into this global recession news storyline. So they're giving us these subject headings to catch my eye, but then also paint a much dire economy that goes against President Trump's tweets. So this is a direct way that the mainstream media is combating President Trump indirectly by coming out with these dark and gloom stories, which are truthful, but yet once again it lets me know that they want this thing to speed up, because if they cared enough to prolong this current expansion, they will be trying to sell you on hype, saying that private payrolls growth has increased since, they'll go back and give you a fictitious number. Since 1999, we're up, how many ever percent, which is true, but yet, once again, it's irrelevant because we're talking about this expansion time frame. So I'm leery of that. So I'm not saying that this is like valid news that we all should listen to, but it's a good indicator of what they're trying to do. Private payrolls increased by just 67,000 in November. When you got 350 million people, 67,000 increase. I'm not even sure what percentage that is. That's probably like 0.001, if I'm even near that. So the number was well below the consensus estimated at 150,000 and is the slowest growth since May. So even 150,000 out of 350 Americans, of which 75 might be retired, 100,000 is not really actively looking according to their information. So there's probably less than 100 active participants in the economy now. So 150,000 to me doesn't really do any justice. But I'm gonna actually play this and let's listen to this and see what we got.
It is time for the ADP private payroll report. Steve Leisman has that number. Steve.
Yeah. We don't have any volume. Give me a second. Let me fix this. Where's the volume? There we go. All right, let's play this again. Let's try this again. See what they're talking about.
It looks like 150,000, and they revised down last month from 125 to 121,000. Goods sector taking the brunt of it, down 18,000 on the month. Service sector doing okay at 85,000. It's part of a debate about the downshift in jobs that we're having. The street on Friday in the total, this is private sector and government, looking for a total of 187,000. This is a big enough miss where some people on the street are going to start to reconsider that 187 number. But let me just show you very quickly. Small business up just 11,000. Medium and large doing okay, up 29 and 27,000 respectively. But
all right, so once again, not much there but hot air. But it's one of the things where, like I said, 150,000 jobs out of 300-something million people. Nothing worth bragging about, but that's just the measurements they use to continue to give us a false narrative. Article is in the chat if you guys are interested. So let me check out the chat real quick, and then, as always, because I'm running behind time-wise, I want to just zoom through the next one because it's probably a very good indication as to the true nature of our economy. And so, Crypto Roger says, I am a poor disabled Iraq vet. I didn't get any welfare of any kind by choice. Let the food stamp program burn. Maybe people need to learn to live more simple lives. Yeah. Interesting way of wording it. What else we got here? Any other thoughts out there people want to share? We got, who is this? We got Omnibone says, always saw on YouTube that Obama was an antichrist, but I thought the antichrist was a deceiver. Trump is deceiving those that supported him that are poor. Is he the antichrist now? I think personally, Omni, I think we throw out the word antichrist very loosely because according to the Bible, the antichrist, from what my little 2 cents has given me, will come out of the European region or be a lot more deceiving than what we have now. Like, I can truly read through, most people here can read through what these political figures are giving us as not being the truth. So I think the person who is slated for that particular job, the Antichrist, will be a lot more convincing. Therefore, things will probably look a lot different. And that Antichrist will have some supernatural abilities and things of that nature to kind of back it up, which will lead to people being deceived. So President Trump, beyond Twitter, that's the only thing he really has is his power tool at this current moment. So just, it's not joking matter, but yeah. So that's just my thoughts. And then Sonia said Antichrist is the Pope. Yeah, I can't get into name calling because I don't want to take it there. I think we are not at that point yet. because we still got some time to go. We still got time to go, in my personal opinion. And so we've been in the last days for 2,000 years. So there's still a lot more things that has to unfold, which biblically speaking is in the works, but not here yet. So I don't go that far down the rabbit hole myself. But let's get to this very last article, and then we're going to dial back. So this article here plays right into what I talked about yesterday. And I'm not sure why it's so lopsided, but let me try to refresh this page so that I can hopefully get it centered. There we go. All right. So here's something that people might be interested in hearing, especially if you're on the coast. So this is an article here from Reuters, and it says, top Los Angeles homeless official steps down as crisis deepens. So if you guys had a chance to watch the little video I did yesterday about chipping the homeless, yada, yada. So this article here was very timely because not only did I talk about it yesterday, but it looks like things are getting worse. And apart from me hearing about it, I haven't seen it with my own eyes. But I'd imagine that when you got people stepping down, there's an outcry for something to be done. And here's the thing. There's not much that can be done at this current moment because it's a systemic event, or it's systemic in nature, put it like that. You got an overpriced region due to all the issues we have with our financial system. There's no way of resolving it other than just to make things more affordable. But the only way you can truly get back to some type of affordability for everyday life is to reboot the system, start it anew, but remove the fractional reserve model and remove the debt-based aspect of it. Get back to some type of standard that will prove to withstand private interest, corporate interest, the banking model as it is today, and everything else, which I don't see that happening. So there's no true solution to this problem. So you can fire them, hire them. You can bring in the next person who speaks good about being able to make change. But once again, these are the same individuals that's operating from the same level of knowledge that created this problem. So once again, Einstein's quote, according to Einstein from heard, you can't solve a problem with the same level of thinking. And that's the problem with our limitation in knowledge. There's only so much we know as individuals. You can read all the books in the world. You can read all the top motivational speakers, all that stuff, but you're still going to be recycling the same level of information. So the only solution comes from something greater than us, and it doesn't come in human form. It comes in the spiritual core essence of who we are and who our Creator made us to be. So that's one of the things where no matter where you go, whether you believe it or not, you can't escape. You can't escape the spiritual elements of life, because everyone here will believe that hopefully you believe that you're more than just a physical shell with some skin and all the features or whatever. Hopefully you realize there's more to you than just that. And if you do believe that, then who are you then? So yeah, but anyway, I can go on and on, and that's where I'm going starting 2020. So I'm excited. January 1st, 2020, I will be launching the spiritual solution to all our issues. So for those that are interested, if you want to be a part of that, feel free to do so. If you don't want to be a part of it, feel free to do so as well. It's all good. Everything will keep moving forward. Hopefully you are blessed by whatever comes your way, and I definitely just want to try to play my part. I believe that's my part, and I'm going to do that to the best of my ability. So with that being the case, everybody, it's been great hanging out this afternoon. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you're watching a replay of this, leave a comment down below. And if you're new to the channel, definitely subscribe. And I forgot to mention, all these avenues here, the 3 on the end here, and the 2 on the end here are all alternative media-based avenues that Rethinking the Dollar is located at. So make sure you guys connect with us there, because 2020, I anticipate probably some disruptions with this channel, which is okay. So make sure you guys are connected with me here so that we'll keep this show rolling. So in the description of this video are all the links. So make sure you guys set up accounts. So if you do not already, make sure you get accounts for all these two here, especially. These two are really doing well now. Get accounts, subscribe to Rethinking the Dollar, and get connected with me there. I might even do some live streaming on one of these two here outside of this that only will be for those. But I'm tired of ranting. Forgive me for ranting. But with that being the case, it's been great hanging out. If you want to be a blessing to the channel, feel free to do so. The opportunities, ways of supporting is down beneath. And if you want to take it to a greater level to really show your support, consider becoming a Patreon, where you'll be able to become a member and get all types of special opportunities that are coming. I have a lot of things I'm working on that will be a blessing to you, so it will be worth your investment. So other than that, be blessed, be safe. See you later. Hey there, sorry for this interruption, but I wanted to bring something to your attention. If you've been enjoying this live stream, why don't you partner with me and be a support to the channel via Patreon membership for just a minimum of $5 a month. All you have to do is scroll down beneath this video here, click the Patreon link, then consider donating as little as $5 a month towards the channel. A little bit of crumbs can go a long way, and I appreciate your support. Now, let's get back to this live stream. Hey there, hope all is well. Back at you today with some more RTD News updates. And as you can tell from today's title, Congress is coming after your 401k. America's pension crisis is getting worse. I'm going to be covering several different articles, all dealing with the ongoing pension crisis we're experiencing